Welcome to the HD Experience, your source for sports on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Here's your host, Hunter Dawkins.
Good afternoon. My name is Hunter Dawkins, and I'm the host of the HD Experience. This is the 42nd episode. It's a Mississippi Gulf Coast sports podcast sponsored by the Gazebo Gazette, Harrison County's independent newspaper, the Beau Rivage Resort and Casino in Biloxi, that is hosting Shrek the Musical later on this month. Nine Toes Brewing Company in Pasquerchan, who has live music every single weekend, and a lot of other things going on too. O'Dwyer Realty agent Stephanie Mankiewicz, Joseph Kelly, attorney at law, Coast Casual in Pasquerchan, who has got some really great summer deals. Caitlin will definitely talk with us in the future about that. The Insurance Barn in Gulfport, the Mississippi Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo in Gulfport, Jones Park, July 4th weekend. I know Jeff is big on that. We're always in the U.S. Marine Inc. studio. I'm here with my wonderful producer of the show, and my good friend, Jeff Clark. Jeff is a well-accomplished, award-winning journalist, South Alabama beat writer, director of the Harrison County Senior Services. How are you, my friend?
I'm well, Hunter. Always like when we get to the part of the intros where you introduce me as your good friend or your great friend. You know, one as long as I'm one or the other, I'm doing well. Nine Toes Brewing Company is one of our sponsors, so I want to tell you about my experience there. Friday night, my son Charlie and I went down to watch the Ole Miss baseball game one of their World Series and the World Cup. And dude, it was packed. It's probably one of the funnest times I've ever had at a sports bar in my life. You know, I don't drink, but they do make like a vanilla root beer they make in house, which Charlie likes. I had a couple of Coke Zeros. A lot of people I knew, a lot of people in the community were there. Kirk Kimball, on and on. It's a great night, man. It's a great place.
The most important thing, Jeff, about it wasn't just for you yourself. It was for the whole family.
Well, yeah, it's a family thing, man. Like my son had hot dogs, and he and his buddies would run out and play, and then they'd come back in and watch the game. Watching America win the first World Cup appearance. It's great, man. It was awesome. You know, it was a really, really good time. As you and I were talking before we started rolling, Ole Miss kind of stunk it up, had all the momentum, and then kind of let that go. And looks like they're struggling today because we're taping this on a Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. They're actually currently behind in the bottom of the eighth inning, 12-8, Jeff. And as we've been following them across the board, but we'll talk with some with an Ole Miss, people at least down the line. But our theme, of course, today, and I know you'd like this one better.
Absolutely.
Our theme is Somewhere in Middle America. The theme of this song, just for the audience, is based on a line from a legendary Counting Crows song, which I know Jeff knows about this very well, that spoke about small town America and how changes in small town America can cause problems in certain ways of life. And that's a little bit how the athletic changes have been happening. And additionally,
it's from the song Omaha, great Counting Crows song, and it's certainly small town changes definitely happening for Ole Miss, Alabama. A lot of people feeling the pain,
Yeah, exactly. And it's not only that, we're talking, generally about football, as we've talked last week, and we'll continue this week about, high school football, some of the changes that have been happening and how that's kind of potentially could hurt some schools, especially in our area, Jeff. Additionally, the title of the song is where the College World Series is starting or is being playing at in Omaha. And Jeff, these dry days of summer are happening with the horizon of football and media days happening soon. Do you want to give me your thoughts based on all that?
I'm enjoying watching the College World Series. I always love baseball season. Man, it's so exciting to have the World Cup back in the USA. It hadn't been here since 1994. Alexi Lawless, like I remember that team well. There's a lot of hype about that. But like, man, hey, last night the Knicks, what a comeback that was,
Knicks,
right?
Knicks,
Knicks and
Knicks.
five, baby. Knicks and five, I mean, wow. They came back from what, a 15, 17 point deficit? Yeah.
And then the game before that was a 29.
Yeah, man, won it with the last second. So, hey, do I miss football? Absolutely. Do I miss football enough where I'm going to watch UFL? No. But,
Yeah,
I know it's coming. I'm looking forward to next month. We'll be at Media Days together for the Sun Belt Conference. I'm going to go ahead and start doing some preview pieces on USA for the Gazebo Gazette, the Southern Alabama football team. Those will be coming up in July. Getting ready for what the season's going to look like for them. Hunter will be telling us about Southern Miss, and football season is definitely my favorite sports time of the year.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's something that we definitely have ready to looking forward to. But just like you said about the different sports, the soccer, the basketball, everything else that's just kind of going on, and even hockey. Hockey is game six. Carolina, the Hurricanes tonight. They got a 3-2 lead, and they're playing in Vegas. The Vegas Aces, who have been dominant the last few years, we'll definitely see what happens with all that, and we'll tell you guys more about that in the future. We look forward to get going on with the guests, and we thank you very much, Jeff. We'll
Right.
talk.
The greatest fairy tale never told is coming to Beau Rivage this summer. Everyone's favorite ogre hits the stage in the Broadway hit Shrek the Musical. Join Shrek, Donkey, and Princess Fiona on a high-energy, family-friendly adventure, June 11th through July 2nd. Tickets start at $25 with 4-packs starting at $60. VIP packages available. Get your tickets at beaurivage.com. A Rand Productions show produced through special arrangement with Music Theater International, MTI, plus tax and service charge. Schedule subject to change. Some restrictions may apply.
Now I'd like to introduce my first guest, St. Stanislaus Catholic football coach, Evan Gay. Coach, you were recently hired from Knoxville, Tennessee, where he also coached at Webb High School, a really good high school. I'll tell you this, Coach, a long time ago, I was a coach in Knoxville 2 years ago, but thank goodness I came back. But he's returned to the Rocket Shaws after previously coaching on the coast a few years ago. Coach, as I told you in my past life, I coached at Wartburg in East Tennessee. I know you probably know where that is. Give me your thoughts about leaving a successful program at Webb High School to come back to the coast.
Yeah, it was spent I was actually at the Webb School in Bell Buckle, Tennessee. So not the Webb School in Knoxville, which is a little bit different.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think the history at Webb Knoxville is pretty good. Where I was at, they were getting started in the football program, so I had a lot of work ahead of me when I first got there. And just put in a lot of time and work and built the program up to where we had a really good season in 24 and went to the playoffs. Best season in program history. Offense averaged 40 points a game and over 400 yards a game. And so a really successful season. I was here back at St. Stanislaus in 21 as a quarterback coach, and we really loved it. My family loved being down here on the coast. And so had the opportunity to come up again. Man, just couldn't help ourselves and coming back down to the coast and very excited to be at St. Stanislaus for this upcoming season.
Absolutely. Your return has become during an interesting time in private schools in Mississippi. Seeing that SSC should not change as far as the status of classification, how do you feel about the Rocks being competitive in this climate?
Yeah, we went out in the spring and we competed at USM in kind of a jamboree type deal out there for our spring game. We played Collins the first quarter, and then we played Copiah the second quarter. Went out against Collins and had a long drive. They drove down and scored, took, a lot of the clock up, and then we came right back down and drove down the field. and threw a touchdown pass. And very great for us to see as a coaching staff, our offense on the very first drive of our kind of tenure, march it down the field and put it in the end zone and kind of match Collins. And we ended up getting a stop on defense and coming down. We got down to their 30-yard line with 3 seconds, called a timeout. And our sophomore field goal kicker, Jude Babin, hit a 50-yard field goal to win that. So it was great for those guys. I think they beat Bay last year, which was like the second game of the season. So I think they lost 7 in a row coming into that one. So it was good for us to get that. And then we start the game against Copiah and throw a 80-yard touchdown pass on the very first play against them to start the second quarter. And we ended up having a really good spring game there. I think we ended up losing to Copiah 21-7, but we were down on their side of the field. I think we were down on like the 10-yard line with 19 seconds to go in half, had an opportunity to score. And we've got a freshman, going to be sophomore, Lou Monty, playing quarterback for us right now. And he just made a young mistake and threw an interception in the end zone right there. And it really should have been 21-14. We had a wide open receiver. And so, man, we went out and did exactly what we needed to do in the spring game. So I'm looking forward to the season. We've definitely got our work cut out for us, and we're grinding here over the summer and trying to get bigger, stronger, faster, and getting our offensive and defensive schemes implemented. And so, yeah, we're excited about it, man. We definitely got a gauntlet of a schedule to run, but what we say is respect all and fear none, man. So we're going to go out each week and compete to the last play. And, if we do all the things that we need to do, usually winning will start taking care of itself. And I definitely believe that. And I've seen that in my past.
What's the main difference you are going to bring personally, Coach, to this program than your previous predecessors? Now, I'm not trying to say anything bad about them. I'm just saying, what do you offer different for the program than what has been there?
Yeah, I'm a former U.S. Army infantry soldier. I served 2 tours in Iraq. My first tour, I was a commander's RTO and gunner. My second tour, I was an infantry squad leader in Solder City with Chris Kyle and the Navy SEALs, and did a lot of missions with those guys.
Coach, we thank you for your service, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It was an honor to serve my country. And so I take a lot of those values that I learned as a military leader and implement that type of discipline and that military style into our football program. And we've already seen the benefits. I mean, we had 240 yards of offense in one half, and the guys are really excited and they're really taking to it. So, I think that's one thing that's helped me in my past is just the discipline, the accountability that I bring, and getting kind of everybody on the same team and going in the same direction.
Absolutely. From what you have seen, what are the strengths of this team so far? And, where do you think that's going to get to?
Yeah, we have a lot of really tough football players, guys that want to come in and work hard, that are ready to put the nose to the grindstone and get after it. And they're just relentless. I mean, they've already bought in, and we've only, we had 3 weeks to prepare for that spring game. And that was including a new offense and a new defense. We have a completely new coaching staff. And so, the coaching staff bought into what we were doing. The players bought into it. And we're just going to be a gritty football team, man. We're going to be a team that, we're not going to care if we're down 21, 28 points at any point in the game. We're going to battle to the end. And when you do that, man, you find yourself battling back into those games and getting them in there. And I think we'll be able to close them out and win. So, our team's going to be a tough, gritty team, man. I mean, we're not going to be very flashy, I don't think, but, man, the toughness and grit, I think, will pull us through.
Coach, final question for you. How long do you feel like with this team, even though they are, as you said, tough and resilient, how long do you think it's going to be realistically for them to get ready to adjust to what your system and what you wanted to preach, at least from the field?
Yeah, well, I think, it surprised me really how we went out and competed in the spring game. And so that kind of, I think, boosted the morale of everybody. And I'm looking for us to come out week 1 and compete. And so, we talk about, any time that we're going out and they're keeping score on the scoreboard, we're going to give it everything we have to go out there and win the football game. And so, yeah, I think they've picked it up really quickly, and we've got a really good class of seniors in there. These guys are really helping me set the foundation of our program for the years to come. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to going out there week one and getting a win and then trying to get some momentum and get a good run into the playoffs. And so, yeah, I'm very excited about our team. I think we're going to probably surprise some people out there this year.
Coach, thank you very much. And from a fellow Rockechaw myself, we thank you very much. And, we look forward to following you, and we'll get back in touch with you whenever we can get you on.
Yeah, sounds great, Hunter. Thanks for having me on.
Looking for effortless style on the coast? Discover Coast Casual in the Pass, your locally owned men's and boys' boutique. Coast Casual offers a mix of coastal and southern-inspired clothing, accessories, and gifts.
The Gazebo Gazette is Harrison County's only independent newspaper, publishing news from Gulfport to Bay St. Louis every Friday. Hi, this is Hunter Dawkins, owner of the Gazebo Gazette. If you're looking for local news without the hassle of sorting through story after digital story, log on to thegazebogazette.com.
Now I would love to introduce one of my good friends in coaching, someone that I have known for 15 and a half years or more, St. Patrick Catholic head coach Nate Encrapera. Coach, the last 2 weeks seem to have been an interesting for your football team, at least not so much for them on the field, but for you as the coaching staff. With the news of the recent multiplier and the Irish plan to move up following the classification determination eventually, give me your thoughts.
Well, I want to thank you for having me, HD. I can't believe it's been 15 years. It's been I can't believe it's been that long. Getting old. But yeah, I guess we got that information on May 29th. I think it was kind of a surprise. As a school, I don't think any of us were aware that this was being considered. So I think we're still at the beginnings of this, and like I said, I think the most obvious aspect of this is that it's a surprise. So we'll look at it. I know we're gonna look at it. As part of the diocese, I guess there's 3 schools that this is going to impact. Resurrection, Sacred Heart, and ourselves. So I think we're going to get together and talk about it a little bit and see exactly how this is going to impact us and what our next step will be.
I know this is an early question, and I realize that most coaches don't want to talk about this until, after, the process begins, but and I'm not sure exactly that you're 100% knowledgeable about the whole athletic department, but just from the football perspective, do you believe your team right now at this second is ready for the increase in classification side?
Well, I think, as the school's athletic director, I think this is something that we're gonna look at for all of our sports, not just with football. I think, as it pertains to us, I think you start getting up into the larger classification, the roster sizes get bigger. I think we've enjoyed a lot of success here at St. Patrick in a lot of our sports, and I think a lot of that is due to the dedication and hard work of our players and our coaches. And, I don't know that, I think we've just been fortunate, the past several years to have a lot of things come together. So, I don't know. I don't know if that's,
I know it's an early question, and, you haven't really had a whole lot of time, and obviously it's, dealing with, you're not even sure what that team's going to be like next year, but it was just an early, question, at least from that.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you can only put 11 players on the field, but it does impact, the depth, and it impacts, when you go against teams that have, much bigger roster sizes, I think we're going to end up with the numbers that we have in 4A. I think, if you look at the number we turned in last time, I think we turned in like 330 something. And I know that would put us close to, the bottom portion of potentially 5A. I don't know that would actually happen. You know, I don't know what numbers are going to turn in. I think the smallest 5A school last go around was like 50601 maybe.
Yeah.
And I think the time before that it might have been like 470. So if you look at the top end of 5A, like those schools I think are at like 680, 690. So essentially you're putting a school with that's turning like a 330, 340 number in with a school that's putting in, 680, 690. I don't know how fair and balanced that would be. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's a little, I think a lot of states are using like a 1.2 or a 1.3 multiplier. I think the 1.5 is a little high, but
what Stanislaus did in the past was usually a 1.3 or something like that. So, but
I think because that's an all boys school, I think they double it, and I don't know if that's gonna. I had heard that they were just gonna stick with that multiplier, but
sure.
Even from that standpoint, I think our population, if that's going to be something to look at, I think our male population is smaller than our female population. So, like I said, I don't know. There's a lot of things we would have to look at and see, where we would go from here.
On to this year, which I know that's the most important thing. On to this year, what's the main difference between last year's playoff team and this year's team, Coach?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is, coaches always talk about buy-in. I think, the kids, our players, kind of bought into the idea that, we're going to show up and compete every Friday night. And I think we did that enough times to work our way into the playoffs. We still have a long way to go. I think we did a good job of getting some kids in the building that were not playing football. We've gotten those guys out. So our numbers have increased. Almost twofold. I think we had when I showed up, I think we had 22 players, and I think we've doubled that by now. So, getting the players in the program, getting the kids out, retaining those kids from junior high to high school. I think, again, we created an opportunity to where those guys are working out and doing things and got them involved and created that culture. And that's a big thing for me. You have to create that culture in the weight room. And I think we've done that, over the past 2 years. So understanding that, what you need to do to prepare and setting a standard for yourself and holding each other accountable. That's something that the kids have taken to, over the past 24 months. And, I felt like we've come a long way.
Coach, from what you've seen this year so far, what are the strengths of this team? I mean, offensively, defensively, tackling, catching, throwing. Give me what your strengths are with this team so far.
Well, I think we did. I think we did a good job at times running the football. I think no matter what level you're playing this game at, you've got to be able to run the ball. You've got to be able to stop the run. And I think defensively, our guys have come around. I mean, it's that process of as an organization, we try to develop football players, regardless of what your position is. We're going to teach you how to run, block, tackle, and do the things that you need to execute on Friday night. And I think taking that approach, we've, developed some depth, some guys that can play a couple different spots. And I think when you do that, I think kids get a better understanding of the game. So I think our football IQ has improved a lot. The discipline, I think, is getting there where we need to be. The taking ownership of your responsibilities, not just as it relates to football, but as it relates to the classroom, doing the right things in the building. I think the kids have come a long way. I think we'll be able to run the ball. We've got a couple backs that I think are going to be pretty good. Our offensive line play's gotten much better. And then defensively, I think we've got a little chip on our shoulder a little bit. We play defense with a little bit of an attitude. We're starting to embrace the physical aspects of the game in a way that I like. So I think in those areas we've made a lot of strides.
Division play. Talk to me about because I know it was a little different for setup. But as far as division play this year, just talk to me and let me know how do you think you match up with the other teams in your division?
Well, I mean, I think our division is very solid. Stanislaus has a new coaching staff. Coming in, I think they've always had. I'm well aware of the customs that they have over there and how they develop young men. They're going to be tough. Powhatan, West Marion are going to be reloading. I think they've lost some seniors, but they're just physical, athletic football teams. And then PCS, they're extremely well coached. They're going to have probably one of the better quarterbacks in the state. So we're going to have our work cut out for us. I think we'll be better. I think we've got, a lot of guys that are returning that have played some meaningful downs of football, and that's important to have that experience when you get into district play. But we're still going to have a lot of young guys playing. Potentially we're going to have, a lot of sophomores playing on the offensive line. So, a lot of those guys did play some meaningful downs of football, but it'll be you're going to have to fight every week in that district. There's nobody that you're going to be able to rest on your laurels.
Do you think the young guys are ready for varsity football?
I think they are. I think, what we're asking them to do, I think, is consummate with a sophomore, meaning like we're not going to be very complex in our scheme. We're not going to do things that we're not going to try to outwit you. We're going to try to be a physical football team and put those guys in positions to be successful.
Coach, we appreciate you much. We thank you very much, and we hope to have you during the season on as much as possible.
Nine Toes Brewing Company is a Gulf Coast destination for craft beer, great food, and interactive entertainment. Enjoy a rotating selection of small batch brews, a menu of comfort food favorites, and state-of-the-art golf simulators featuring world-famous courses.
Looking for insurance coverage you can count on? Call the Insurance Barn, a professional agency since 1959. The Insurance Barn writes all-in-one policies and offers coverage for homeowners, fire, flood, commercial property, auto, boats, motorcycles, plus wind and hail protection.
And we will move to our next guest, who really doesn't need any introduction from me, as my good friend and SuperTalk news reporter, Caleb Sailors. Caleb covers all of the Mississippi colleges, along with all of the news for the state's largest media syndicate, SuperTalk Mississippi News, on supertalk.fm, and has the statewide school board show for Friday Night Football to report the scores during high school football season. How are you, my friend?
Man, I can't complain. How about yourself?
Well, I hope you're doing a lot better than Ole Miss is right now. But of course, that's kind of closed it out here. I saw it's 12-8, and there's 2 outs at least on the bottom of the ninth. And, just talk to me about, I'm not saying anything one way or the other, but them being in the loser's bracket, talk to me about where they go from here. If, this is the end of the season, what's going to happen to the team after that?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is going to aggressively hit the portal. I mean, Ole Miss already got Halsey from La Tech, a first baseman or infielder. He could play kind of multiple positions in the infield, committed. So they're already aggressively rebuilding, got a pitcher from South Carolina upstate, and then are trending to get a catcher out of TCU. And so they're going to aggressively hit the portal and have to replace a lot of guys. I mean, Judd Utermark and Will Furness, those are 4-year seniors that have been at Ole Miss since, right after the 2022 season, got there in 2023 and have played ever since then. And now their runs come to an end. And Ole Miss is also going to have to replace, all 3 of its starting weekend rotation, most likely. I mean, Hunter Elliott could come back, but the chances of that happening are slim. But they're losing Taylor Rabe. He's draft eligible. Cade Townsend, who's projected to be a first-round pick. So they're going to have to aggressively hit the portal. But, they'll find guys and build a roster. But, Ole Miss they got to Omaha for the first time since 2022, and it's looking like that run has quickly come to an end.
Yeah, that was it's definitely, I think the game just got done. Actually, Troy pulling it out 12-8, and of course that Troy team, who has been a really hot team, all the way across the board. And I don't think Ole Miss should feel bad about that, because they played they beat the mess out of Florida, obviously.
Right.
But so they had three pretty good. I thought the starting rotation was pretty good this year. Are those guys all coming? I mean, any of those guys have the opportunity to come back? Will they? And how many players do you expect from the Ole Miss baseball team going to go in the Major League Draft in July?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I don't think Ole Miss is going to keep any of its starting weekend rotation. Hunter Elliott, Taylor Rabe, Cade Townsend, I expect all those guys to be gone. Several guys going to the draft, those three specifically, Will Furness and Judd Utermark, will go to the draft too. I mean, that's kind of their only option at this point, unless they want to maybe sell insurance or something. And there will be other guys with an opportunity to go to the draft. Dom Decker comes to mind, the second baseman for the Rebels. I would expect him back at Ole Miss next year, but if he does get a good draft grade, then that's another guy they could lose. Will Libbert, a left-handed pitcher who began the season as the Sunday starter, and then it didn't wind up sticking that way. They ended up going to Taylor Rabe on Sundays, but he's another guy too that if he gets a favorable draft grade, he could be gone. Hudson Calhoun, reliever, same way. But if not, those guys could come back. And then Ole Miss, it will probably retain Owen Pano at shortstop and Hayden Federico, who's been the center fielder, though there's been word that he's been tampered with pretty hard by some other SEC programs. But it'll be a rebuild for sure. Austin Foley, catcher, has some pro prospects, but is expected to come back, and we'll see what happens there.
Well, not meaning to end the season for you, because I obviously wanted the Ole Miss Rebels to be able to a little bit farther in the baseball season. But for you and me both, this is the incoming of college football season on the horizon. The SEC released its upcoming college football times this week. Was there anything that shocked you from the in-state schools or them playing on the road or anything as such?
Repeat that question for me, Hunter. I didn't catch the tail end of that.
The SEC, of course, released the college football times this week. Was there anything that shocked you from the in-state schools, on the timing-wise or on the road this year? You could just give me your perspective on that, at least, when the SEC released the schedule earlier last week.
Yeah, I mean, kind of par for the course. Nothing out of the ordinary from what I expected. Obviously, Ole Miss gets a couple of night games early in the season. Actually, all three first games are going to be at night. The Rebels will play Louisville at night on a Sunday in Nashville, and then get the home opener versus Charlotte at night, and then Ole Miss will play LSU, of course, at night. Though that might be a little dangerous in Oxford, that one, Hunter. And then there's a lot of those flexed windows where we'll see what time those games end up. Ole Miss did get a couple of morning games. That Auburn game comes to mind, and that kind of screamed 11 o'clock anyway. But what I did see, though, is how many games are expected to play on ESPN and ABC. It shows that, Ole Miss is one of the premier tickets in college football this year. I mean, especially with Trinidad Chambliss and Kejuan Lacey coming back, and then all eyes being on Pete Golding and how he kind of handles year one as a head coach. One of the things I took away is that the slots were kind of put in an advantageous position for Ole Miss to be in the prime time slot, whether it be 2:30 in the afternoon where people are kind of relaxing, getting settled in, or at night where literally all eyes are on college football.
The NCAA has been conducting an investigation, and some prominent college football individuals like Nick Saban made some recent comments about Ole Miss to Congress on some of the problems, at least with their program. I guess more of a editorialized thing than anything else. Give me your thoughts about his comments and about, kind of the NCAA kind of starting to look for something, at least in the sanctioned level, and putting something a priority that people need to look more at Ole Miss at what's going on.
Yeah, I thought Nick Saban's comments, especially the shots that he took at Ole Miss, were beyond disingenuous. I mean, Nick Saban is a guy who was, I mean, if you were around Alabama football circles, you know that thing was not above board all the time, especially with, new recruits getting brand new vehicles and, the alleged handshake agreements where, cash was allegedly being transferred from a bagman to a player. So a lot of sanctimony, him taking a shot at Pete Golding for, allegedly tampering with Luke Ferrelli out of Clemson. I mean, this is nothing that no college football coach has done at the highest level, especially ones that have been successful. So it seemed like it was out of place. And then for him to take a shot at how Trinidad Chambliss got his injunction too. I mean, this is a case that was ruled that Trinidad Chambliss had a legitimate reason to seek an injunction, had a legitimate reason to vie for an extra year of eligibility, as he only played, 2.5 full seasons of college football. And so I thought I understand where Nick Saban is coming from in the sense that, there does need to be a sense of order in college football. The game has kind of gotten carried away with regard to the transfer portal, endless transfers, and tampering. I get that those things have run amok. But to take aim at one specific program when every other program is doing these same exact things, while also not admitting that you did the same exact things when you were a head coach, it just fell on deaf ears to me. And it probably fell on deaf ears to a lot of people who looked at Saban and said, buddy, you were the king of doing this.
Exactly. Caleb, do you have any expectations of any marquee moves made before the SEC Media Days in July? And if you do, let me know.
Later this week. Southeast Louisiana.
Ole Miss is trending, for some high level prospects out of the high school ranks. Caden Moss, an offensive tackle from Jackson Academy, comes to mind. A couple of offensive linemen, but as for any kind of fireworks or any, big revelations before SEC Media Days, I really don't think that's going to happen. I think we'll hit a lull to where we kind of have an eerie calm, like a odd quiet before we get to SEC Media Days, and then all the fireworks will erupt on what does Lane Kiffin say at SEC Media Days? How does Pete Golding respond? And, and then some of the other sideshows as well.
Caleb, we feel very good always to talk to you. Let everybody know how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can find me on X, Caleb Sailors STM, and then you can find me by searching my name on any other social media platform. And most importantly, you can find all my work at supertalk.fm.
Take care, my friend.
Thanks, Hunter, man. You're the best.
Join us July 2nd to 5th at Jones Park in Gulfport for the 78th Annual Mississippi Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo, a Gulf Coast tradition filled with fishing, food, family fun, and live entertainment.
Looking for trusted legal guidance on the Mississippi Gulf Coast? Joseph Kelly, attorney at law, has been serving the coast since 1993, helping families protect what matters most. From estate planning to securing your legacy, Joseph Kelly provides experienced, personalized legal services designed around your unique needs.
And now, my next guest is someone that I talk to virtually every week, the WGSO radio host for In the Red Zone and Breakfast with the Bayou Bengals, my friend Mitch Gibbs. Mitch, what are some of the expectations about LSU and what they are lacking to carry them over to the top, to the playoff level? Because as you and I have spoken about, that's a concern, that for most of the LSU coaches and things, there's a little bit too much expectations that they're going to win 10, 11 games, be in the playoff, getting to the championship. Give me your thoughts.
Well, I think that the fans need to be careful about expectations because you're bringing in a lot of new players. You got a new coach, head coach who's very good at the portal, and I think they did fairly well. But these are guys that have really never played with each other. And, you got to have a new quarterback. Nussmeier's gone. And so, and then the SEC, I think, has become more of a, there's more balance in the SEC. So I don't think you get as many easy games. I think everybody can be challenging, although you don't have to play like an Alabama, Georgia, who was like very difficult to beat. As you know, LSU's record was not great when Saban was at Alabama. And so I would be guarded. I list them as a bubble team in terms of making the playoffs. I know We're going to have 12 at least this year. I'm not sold on Lane Kiffin completely either, so I kind of disagree with some of my peers in the media. I think he's a guy that, obviously is competent. You're going to win a bunch of games with him, but he's never won an SEC championship. He's never been in the playoffs before. And so, and you got to get all these new players that have to, work together. So you would think LSU will get better later in the season. The only problem is they got to play Clemson the first week of the season. I know it's at home, and it's a revenge game because they beat Clemson last year in the other Death Valley. And then you got to play Ole Miss early in the season on the road. And Lane Kiffin's already kind of fired up the base, which I didn't think was a really great idea. I mean, the way he left was not great. And then he threw out some other stuff. And so that's going to be really tough. So they got really two tough games in the first, 4 games of the year, playing Clemson and Ole Miss. So, if they get through those 2 games and they're undefeated, then we could be talking about a different situation. But I don't think that's I think they're going to lose at least one of those to Ole Miss. So I think everybody should say, the first year it's going to be a transition period. And, if they make it, it's like lagniappe or gravy that they make the tournament. I don't think it's probably going to happen. And I think you just have to be a little more patient, even though you're bringing in Lane Kiffin.
Is this why you think that Ed Orgeron was brought in to help recruiting purposes? Because as you know, Kiffin's been great in the transfer portal, but among the high school ranks, he is not even close to being the top level.
I think a lot of decisions LSU's made is because there's a lot of frustration. I think whether it's with basketball or football, that what is the standard at LSU? I don't know about basketball, but in football, it's like we should be competing for a national championship every year. And they spent a lot of money with Brian Kelly. Not only was it on the field disaster, it was a PR disaster as well. And then they had to pay him a lot of money to move on. They had to pay Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin's strength is obviously the portal, but it's not great with recruiting high school kids. And we know that wherever he's been, Orgeron's been fantastic with recruiting. That's probably his best skill. So that was done for that. But it's just interesting that LSU's bringing in they're bringing in an offensive. I mean a new basketball coach who they fired, and they're bringing in a ex-football coach they fired to be they got to work on bringing in players, so recruiting expert or whatever. So it just sounds to me LSU really wants to win badly, and they're willing to work out a deal with anybody to get to that position.
Has Tulane decided on a quarterback? As you know, Will Hall struggled during his time at USM. How much, talk to me about that at least.
Well, I don't think there's a
question after that.
Yeah, they lost a guy who was really progressing, the transfer from BYU, and now I think there's like a 3 quarterback battle for the starting position, and Will Hall didn't go well at Southern Miss, and I think that's one of the criticisms was they really were not very good offensively, and so it was and again this was a situation where Tulane thought they had Blake Baker, who was the LSU defensive coordinator, and I guess you got to give Lane Kiffin credit if Blake Baker's the right guy. I don't think LSU's defense was that great at times. You could argue injuries, whatever. Perkins was pretty healthy most of the season. But, I mean, there were games where LSU's defense did not look great. I'm not a big Blake Baker guy, but they kept him, and that's what Tulane's first choice was. And I think Tulane should have hired Billy Napier, the old UL coach, who, it didn't work out at Florida. I think Tulane would have worked out. I think he would have been a great pick. And so now they're in with Will Hall because it was kind of the 11th hour kind of situation. So, they got the new practice facility, right? They got the bubble right off Claiborne. So they're spending money on the program. Tulane does have money. They don't have LSU money, but they got money. And, it's almost like the Saints situation where I say the NFC South is very winnable because it's not that great. I think Tulane's conference is not that good either. And so that helps Tulane as well. But I see Tulane being I still think Tulane is going to lose a couple more games than they have in the past. They might be able to win the conference. I don't know, but I think they're an 8-4 team, maybe. I'm guessing.
how long do you think the athletic department donors will give Will Hall to provide some type of quality team for the Green Wave?
I mean, in the old days, I would have thought he would have had a lot more. There would have been a lot more flexibility. We would have more time. But Tulane's been. They've had two good coaches that have maybe inflated their expectations, and so now I think with the more money they're spending on football with the new practice facility, I think there's going to be more pressure on Will Hall. I just think that this could be a transition coach. So with all that said, yeah, I think that if things don't go well, this guy might not be here that many years. And then but the problem is Tulane was going through two very good coaches and had a lot of success. I mean, they were won the Cotton Bowl with one of the coaches, the other coach, they made the playoff tournament. If things don't go well with Will Hall, they're not going to be in the same position, the leverage position that they were going into. And it's awkward, the fact that Tulane could even get their first choice to be head coach after all the success they've had in the last several years. So that would really concern me if Will Hall doesn't work out, that Tulane is going to have a tough time attracting a big name coach. That's why I think Billy Napier would have been a better fit for being the Tulane head coach.
What is the top detail the Kellen Moore New Orleans Saints need to be focusing on improving?
I would say the running game. I mean, they brought in the left guard from Buffalo, who everybody is raving about. They've drafted excluding this past draft, I think 4 of the last 5 drafts, they drafted an offensive lineman in the first round. So they should be pretty strong, on the offensive line. And they didn't run the ball well at all last year. And then they brought in Travis Etienne, who, when he's healthy, has been very good. He had a good year last year with Jacksonville. Makes me wonder why he left. I guess maybe the Saints offered him more money. And then Kamara's situation is so awkward because, they haven't really made a decision on Kamara. Kamara shows up at OTAs a couple of weeks ago. And a lot of people think he might not be on the roster. But I kind of feel like he's got one more year in his contract. And Travis Etienne's had an injury history. So I would probably think the Saints should keep Kamara. But Kamara might think, if you're not really sold on me, just release me and let me play for, try out for somebody else. But they got to run the ball better because, the whole thing about last year was one side, you're like, oh, well, Talachek was throwing the ball well. He developed, because he didn't start in the beginning of the season. He was making all the right passes and he didn't have much of a running game, but then he was playing nobody really. And so you kind of figure out which way is it going to be. We're going to find out whether this year, I think, whether Talachek is really going to be the franchise quarterback, or was it just kind of a mirage in the sense that the competition wasn't that good? Because even though I don't think their schedule's that difficult, the first 2 weeks going to be difficult because it's going to be at Detroit and at Baltimore. So, but I would say running, if you ask me, one thing that really needs to improve is running it. They got to run them. Shuck's not going to be good enough to get over the hump with no running game. So that requires the health of Travis Etienne, and they're just getting in their offensive line to run block.
Mitch, tell everybody how they can contact you.
Yeah, so I'm still doing the show. New Orleans State, we had a great show. I know you participated at PJ's Coffee on Canal Boulevard, which was really cool in the Lakeview area. And gonna wrap up June and then take a little break in July, and then we'll be back in August to be doing the Saints radio show in the Red Zone 17th season. Really proud of that. And then LSU, I think I've been 11 or 12 years now. Breakfast with the Bayou Bengals will be, of course, the Saints show will be on at lunchtime, which I like that Friday at lunch, and discussing the upcoming games at Premier Nissan and Metairie on Veterans right off the I-10. And then we're going to be doing it at this Irish pub in Covington, the LSU football show in the morning. And that'll be starting. They'll both be starting in August. And that'll be the first Friday and first Saturday of the month of August, because we're getting closer to, as you know, we got media days coming up in SEC in Tampa Bay, Florida. And then we've got Saints training camp going on, mini camps going on this week. So we're getting closer and closer to college and pro football.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
United States Marine Inc. knows what it means to show up strong. Your grit and teamwork inspire us every day. At USMI, we cherish our family, and our family includes community and you. USMI builds the baddest boats with pride and coastal toughness.
Finally, let me introduce one of my good friends, the Big Easy, Crescent City sports writer, Les East. Les has won Louisiana Sports Writer of the Year multiple times. Les, how are you, my friend?
Well, Hunter, how are you?
I'm doing well. Les, how are the OTAs for the New Orleans Saints coming along this year? And is there anything that we're learning?
I don't think we're learning a whole lot, but that's not a bad thing because I don't think you ever learn a whole lot of OTAs, at least not anything that's good. You know, somebody could get hurt. Somebody could make a lot of mistakes and a red flag goes up. But it's really hard for people to stand out in a positive way. These guys are running around without pads or helmets. The main reason for the workouts that they have is to get their fundamentals back in shape and to get the timing down in units so that when training camp gets here, they can start immediately practicing at a fast pace where everything is second nature to them. So this is really as basic as anything can get. No one's really gotten a serious injury, though they are holding back a bunch of people out of an abundance of precaution. So some guys have been missing, but it's really hard for people to stand out this time of year, but nothing has stood out in a negative way. So I think that's a positive.
This was a heavy offensive weapon draft for the Saints. Talk to me about why they went down this road rather than focusing on something a young defensive staff, building something from the interior.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of reasons for that. One, last year the defense was ahead of the offense. It had a pretty good season, a very good second half of the season. And so they need to get the offense up to speed with the defense. Also, the most encouraging thing from last season was the way Tyler Shuck played in those last 9 games. So their best chance to make a leap this year and perhaps even get to the playoffs is maximizing what Tyler Shuck can do. But he didn't have enough weapons last year. So they bolstered the offensive line. They added a lot of skill at wide receiver in the draft, especially. They added Travis Etienne as a running back, and they strengthened the tight end position. So they went all in on trying to take full advantage of what they have in Tyler Shuck, and that's clearly their greatest hope for having a breakthrough season this year.
Based on the schedule, Les, how big are these road matchups start the season, including with Detroit and Baltimore?
Yeah, I think it's important in sort of intangible way. I mean, you know, every game counts the same ultimately, except division games because of tiebreakers. But if you start off 0-2 versus 1-1 or 2-0, that can be psychologically damaging, be harmful to your confidence. And so getting off to a good start's always important. And with the 2 teams they're going to open up with, I believe it's with Detroit and Baltimore, who both figure to be good teams, opening with them on the road is very challenging. So, you always want to get off to a good start. But I think if they can get off to a good start, at least 1-1 in these first 2 games, that would be significant for them to build momentum as the season gets going. And certainly a 2-0 start would be tremendous.
True. As you know, their schedule at least is pretty optionally after it goes from the first 2. So I think you're certainly right about that. The NFC South division appears to be pretty wide open. Give me your thoughts about that. I mean, unless if you've seen something that I haven't, but it looks to me like the Falcons and Tampa are in a lot of question about their own franchise, and I'm still not really even sure where Carolina's at. But the Saints look like they could be moving in the right direction. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think they are, and I think they have as good a chance as anybody to win the division. You might even say that there's potential for them to have more of an upward trajectory than anybody else. You know, Carolina's the team to watch because they're young. They have a young quarterback, still a relatively young head coach. They broke through last year to win the division, although it wasn't because they were great. It was because they were slightly better than everybody else in a mediocre division. Falcons are going through a major transition at coach and quarterback. And Tampa may be where the Saints were about 4 years ago. The Saints had won 4 straight division titles, and then Drew Brees leaves, Sean Payton leaves, and all of a sudden they've been in a rebuilding mode. Well, Tampa's kind of on the hot seat after winning 4 straight division titles. They didn't make the playoffs last year. Their coach is on the hot seat. Nobody's sure if Baker Mayfield's going to be the answer going forward, even though he's had a nice few seasons there. So a lot of question marks with both Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Carolina's breakthrough last year, I think, was encouraging for them, but they still have a lot of question marks. So I think the Saints are right there in good shape to win this division and maybe be the team to watch over the next few seasons because of Tyler Shuck and also how much younger this roster has gotten in a short period of time, as well as having Kellen Moore, who looks like a bright young head coach entering just his second season.
Finally, final question for you, Les. Has Tyler Shuck developed some type of chemistry, whether it be OTAs, whether it be mini camps, anything as such, with the new wide receiver unit as a whole?
Yeah, he definitely has. He's kind of taken the leadership role as the quarterback should, putting together workouts with these guys. They've been working out at a local high school sometimes when they haven't been at Saints camp. Doing team activities. He's been gathering up the wide receivers, and they've been working together. You know, they drafted 3 guys. They traded for 2 guys last season. Jalen Polk didn't play at all because of injuries, and Devon Vele didn't get to play a whole lot. And then Chris Olave has been limited in OTAs. So there's a lot to be accomplished there in terms of timing and familiarity. And he's done a good job of getting everybody together as much as he can so that they can hit the ground running at the end of July when training camp begins. Things overall, there's reason to be a lot more optimistic this year than the last few years, although this is not a team that's guaranteed anything, but it's legitimate to feel better about them at this time.
Tell everybody how they can contact you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. They can find me on Facebook. I'm on X at Les_East. And as far as CrescentCitySports.com, I've already filed the first 3 installments of a 10-part series analyzing the roster as we lead up to the start of training camp. So if folks haven't seen that, they can go back and read the first 3. And the 4th one will be posting this week as they have a mini camp Tuesday and Wednesday to conclude the off-season program.
We thank you very much, my friend. We look forward to hearing from you again. We gratefully appreciate you listening to this podcast. And Jeff, we thank you again. We definitely think this was a good one. We had a lot of good information, a lot of middle of America route type things. And so I think that I did follow the song correctly with most of the guests and everything as such. So
it's a great song. You couldn't go wrong. There was no way you could do that. And thank you. So it's such an awesome song.
We want to thank all of our sponsors, Jeff, including the Beau Rivage.
Boy, there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, there is.
Lengthy list.
The Beau Rivage Resort and Casino in Biloxi, 9 Toes Brewery in Pass Christian, O'Dwyer Realty Agent, Stephanie Mankiewicz, Joseph Kelly's attorney at law, the Coast Casual in Pass Christian, the Insurance Barn in Gulfport, and the Mississippi Deep Sea Fishing Rodeo at Jones Park in Gulfport on the July 4th weekend, and finally the U.S. Marine Inc. Make sure you follow us on the GazeboGazette.com, where the podcast will be posted next week. As also, Jeff, now we're on YouTube, and I think you can find us under the Gazebo Gazette Productions. Am I correct?
Yep. Yes, sir. That's how you look it up. You can search it up. So we're under Gazebo Gazette Productions is our homepage there, or you can just search HD Experience and it'll pop up.
There you go. There you go. And as well as on Facebook.com/The Real Gazebo Gazette, or we're on X at Gazebo Gazette is the handle. The HD Experience is available on all podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon Music, and anything we're not on, you let us know and we'll fix it. But we're under the HD Experience tagline. Signing out, this is Hunter Dawkins. I'm the host of the HD Experience, and we'll catch you on the flip side.